Salutations and welcome to Space Time Continues. My name is Mary Louise Davey, and at the end of the show, I'm going to take you to space. But first, I'm going to get into some of our stories. By the way, the launch that just happened this past weekend with SpaceX. Terribly exciting, really cool. They have done more launches just this month. I mean, it's incredible. But we'll get to watch that sooner, because who doesn't love a great launch? I love any launch, but let's get started with Doomsday or bust, because that's what we might be facing. Elon Musk, Mars colony, he claims that those dreams are critical to helping us avoid a doomsday event. The entrepreneur can help us avoid extinction, claims 1 million people can be sent to safety on the planet, Mars, of course, and he has an outline to prove it. As a matter of fact, he plans on releasing it later this week. Well, let's circle back to this species-saving adventure once we've discussed what science lists as the numerous doomsday scenarios that just might make us grateful to Elon for his genius and his foresight. Global disaster. Are we ready? Well, to be fair, some of the disasters or doomsday events we have seen in movies, such as the movie I, Robot, where intelligent machines attempt to overthrow humanity, or we see some designer virus whose goal is to teach the CDC and government a lesson that there's gaps in their security. But do we take such ideas serious enough? Should we lend them more credibility? And what about disasters more organic in nature, such as an asteroid? I mean, it's been what, about 60 million years? We kind of do, aren't we? Often we think of scientists as locked up in some lab 60 floors down beneath the surface of the Earth. Maybe if you ever saw that movie Independence Day, and maybe they'd look like that scientist in Area 51. But that's not really true, at least not for the most part. Right now, more than 1,000 physicists made the trip to, Palais des Congrès in Paris, a conference center that will host one of the coolest meetings on the scientific calendar. It's the International Conference on High Energy Physics, which already has an impressive track record as the place where new discoveries are discussed. This time celebrates the fact that the physicists from the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, the European Particle Physics Lab near Geneva, will join researchers from other laboratories in unveiling their latest results. Talks at the meeting will cover a vast range of topics, from the performance at the LHC and other accelerators to quirks of the nature and the hunt for the Higgs boson, the elusive particle to give mass to building blocks of nature. And of course, if this were a sci-fi movie, maybe also on the docket might be a discussion on how the LHC might destroy the planet. But this isn't fictional. And with all the doomsday discussion by John Q. Citizen, one might think the Large Hadron Collider was the first particle accelerator. It wasn't. Particle physicists have been messing with the future of humanity since at least the 1950s, when the forerunners of the LHC were being built. Mention world-ending scenarios to staff on the LHC, or its main competitor, the Tevatron, at Fermilab in near Chicago. And you expect a roll of the eyes at best. Physicists have gone to great pains to explain why such fears are unfounded. The time could perhaps be better spent on getting on with research. The focus for physicists at the meeting in Paris will not be on doomsday scenarios, but on discoveries. More than people know, these fears regarding political colliders such as the LHC are completely science fiction. Of course, there is that one, only theoretical thankfully, concept, vacuum delay. It occurs when part of the universe is knocked into a more stable state than it exists in today. This creates a bubble of true vacuum that expands at the speed of light. It reduces the energy locked up in the vacuum of space, rewrites the laws of nature. Sounds fun, right? But let's look at some more mundane and possible doomsday events. Do you remember 2012? The Mayans weren't really wrong. It was kind of our interpretation of their calendar. I mean, apparently they just ran out of paper. Meanwhile, we had 7 billion or so people kind of freaking out. Well, let's think on some actual doomsday scenarios, such as the supervolcano. Before I offer this doomsday event, think about the chances of an earthquake unzipping the world's fault system. It's negligible, according to seismologist Thornley of the University of California in Santa Cruz. To explain in a little more detail, the energy released by the earthquake is directly related to the length of the fault that is ruptured during the event. Now, the major fault zones that mark boundaries between the tectonic plates are not continuous, and irregularities like changes in the type of faulting and the existence of smaller plates with shorter boundaries stops ruptures short of apocalyptic lengths. However, there are other geological hazards that may have more potential for doom. Have you considered, say, an eruption of the supervolcano beneath Yellowstone National Park? I certainly have. Yellowstone's most recent earthquake was 2,640,000 years ago. So does that mean we're due? Seems like we might be. Yellowstone's giant volcanic crater rather, has risen more than 10 inches in the last 10 years, suggesting molten rock may have been building up underneath. But hey, don't quote me. I'm a space geek. Besides, I just watched the movie Pompeii. Man, cool movie. But I've got disasters on the brain. So, sorry for saying this, but more of my kind of event is, well, of all the extraterrestrial objects that could possibly hit the Earth, asteroid certainly tops the list. To refresh your memory, thanks to a 9-mile-wide asteroid that crashed into what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, the dinosaurs became extinct about 65 million years ago. NASA tries to catch them all the asteroids, but and they have a lot of help. They've got the help of the citizen scientists, but there's some that come in from the area of the sun, and it kind of hides some of them. So we maybe don't notice them until it's too late. And there's been a lot of them lately that going by go, oops, we didn't know about that one until 3 days ago or 3 weeks ago. Well, and those can cause even major catastrophes on top of that. The massive floods, the destruction of entire cities to dust that blacks out the sky, and then the agriculture collapse. So at least once every few 100,000 years, chunks of rock more than 3/5 of a mile wide, equivalent of about 12 New York City blocks, could come tumbling through the atmosphere, causing much more serious problems on a global scale. Acid rain, killing crops, debris would shield the Earth from sunlight, firestorms would ensue. Basically, and that's according to NASA's Near-Earth Object Program. Now, I know NASA has got this and is being careful, but there was Russia. Remember that? That wasn't that long ago. And it seems that every other week, as I said, there's one passing closer to Earth than the one before. Well, we haven't seen one this close before, and then the next week goes by, and oh my God, here's an even closer one. So, but from asteroids, we go to their cousin, the comet. So, a comet collision. Now, comets, they're made up of ice and dust, whereas asteroids are made up of rocks and metals. A comet named Hartley 2 came within 11 million miles of Earth on October 20th, which, believe it or not, is pretty close. Comets are super dangerous because they're coming from farther distances at speeds of 100,000 plus, and they pick up speed in this area due to Earth's gravitational pull. The faster an object is moving, the bigger a force it will exert on whatever it happens to hit. So then the more energy it'll deposit or transfer, basically, when it hits Earth. So that means more damage. And for humans, can mean the end, doomsday. So when a comet gets within about 390 million miles of Earth, the sun starts to heat the comet's center, and it warms it, and the comet begins to spew out dust and gas and all those things that form those beautiful tails that we see and that comets are really known for. There's always poor, staunch protector Jupiter. I mean, they're kind of our savior many a time, and they always take a lot of things. And if not, we could always do the Bruce Willis thing, you know, nuke it. But that's comets. How about a killer contagion? That's a doomsday, huh? Sci-fi movie or reality? Actually, sci-fi is often the best predictor of the future. Such a devastating global pandemic? Maybe. Currently, science is contributing to these fears in the form of a highly contagious lab-made variant of the H5N1 virus. In case you missed it, American and Dutch scientists are studying the H5N1 virus in ferrets by making the deadly virus more deadly by gene mutation and manipulation. But before the genetic changes were made, the virus could only spread through touch. But now afterwards, it now can spread through the air. But hey, what could possibly go wrong, right? Could a virus be strong enough to kill off civilization? Probably not, said Peter Cantona, a researcher at UCLA who focuses on biological terrorism preparedness. Of course, it might wreak havoc. Single virus, unlikely to wipe out all humans and animals on Earth because there's enough diversity, or that some would at least be resistant. That's according to Caltech virologist Alice Huang. So that won't kill us. What about a suicidal supernova? They're one of the most powerful explosions in the universe. They can rival the strength of a few octillion nuclear warheads. That's according to NASA. There are two kinds. There's the core collapse supernovas. That's when a giant star collapses after 5 million to 20 million years of life. And the second type is type 1A. 1A supernovas occur when a white dwarf star detonates after its core gets too dense. Of course, this isn't going to happen every day, not likely. A core collapse supernovas occur 2 to 4 times more frequently than the type 1A supernovas in the Milky Way. A core collapse tends to happen every 100 years or so, and it happens at a safe distance, about 5 to 10 parsecs, or 16.5 to 33 light years. But it's close enough to write sci-fi stories about, but far enough to put worrying to another day. How about orbital obliteration? Not likely to happen in the next, say, 5 billion years. But think about orbits going unstable adds a little spice to danger of planetary science. I'm speaking of changes in how the planets circle the sun. Could knock out the Earth, and Jupiter is kind of a bully, so got to be worried about that. It kind of tugs at the orbits of other planets. The orbits could stretch. The swift planet could crash into the sun. Planets could be kicked out of the solar system. Mercury and Earth could collide, and the impact would destroy the Earth, even though our planet has more mass, 20 times more mass than Mercury. But then again, we're talking 5 billion years, so any relatives that are going to be alive are going to have so many greats that really, but there's solar slaughter. That could occur. But that also is in the same time frame. So suppose that scenario that I just gave you, the Earth dodges Mercury. But the Earth doesn't matter. The Earth will eventually be turned into an oven by the sun. That's according to Chris McKay, NASA's planetologist. As the sun burns hydrogen in its core, converts to helium by fusion, a process through which the nuclei of atoms meld together, fusion produces a tremendous amount of heat. So as time passes, we're talking about 5 billion years, as I say. As the star gets older, it gets hotter and brighter. And in about 1 billion years, which I still don't think I'm going to be alive, scientists predict the sun's going to shine about 10% brighter than it does now. The extra energy will heat Earth to well over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The oceans will boil off, the climate will collapse, and any kind of real estate not really going to be worth much. That's according to astrophysicist Klaus-Peter Schroeder of the University of Guanajuato in Mexico. Eventually, if climate change or an asteroid or a comet doesn't get us, the sun will. Now remember that when she becomes a red giant, there's nothing we can do about that. That's just going to happen. Earth will become swallowed by the sun because it's going to expand out and swallow up whatever's in its way. But scientists could actually be doing something about this if they did it millions of years in advance. See, in order to enlarge Earth's orbit by manipulating asteroids visiting our solar system, shifting the path of rocky passers-by so that they could move in front of the Earth and could create a slight pull to help us speed it up. We could move quicker pace, we could orbit slightly larger, just a little bit larger each time, and keep pushing and keep doing that. Earth's orbit could swell by about 5%, which would translate into about 10%. 10% less solar energy reaching our planet, but, you know, when has policy ever been made because of science? Should be, but when has it been made because of it? Face it, we're not going to do well in this. If we're to have a future as a civilization, a species, SpaceX CEO Musk has the how. Creating a self-sustaining colony on Mars. Musk's paper discusses his outline. It's called Making Humans a Multiplanetary Species, and his vision for making the human race a multiplanetary spacefaring society. That's what will save us. From what you ask, maybe a doomsday scenario, be it asteroid, an alien race, or climate change? The answer's in the stars. Musk's paper, which is a summary of his presentation at the 67th International Astronautical Congress in Guadalajara last year, he suggests the future doomsday event will force us to look at other planets to stave off extinction. Now, of course, the options currently available to us are somewhat limited. Take Venus. Well, that's a pressure cooker with acidic atmosphere, so if you don't mind, I'm going to say no. Mercury's a tad too close to the sun, so if you don't mind, I'll say no again. And the planet's moon, well, kind of small, and while I enjoy the idea of playing basketball and jumping 6 times higher or a trampoline would be pretty cool, maybe the fact that I might want to breathe, difficult. So what are we going to do? Well, that leaves what? Musk suggested Mars. And he admits the distance isn't a pleasant one. I mean, yeah, it's kind of far to get there. But besides being the best option, we can make it an even better one. We can warm the planet, thicken the atmosphere, turn its frozen oceans to where they can meet our needs. Now, a Mars sol, remember, it compares to the Earth very favorably. An Earth day is 24 hours. A sol is 24 hours and a half an hour. So that's not bad. We already know that asparagus will grow, well, can grow on Mars. That was according to the Pioneer, remember the Pioneer expedition? Well, or mission to Mars. A scientist on that said that it would grow there. Now also, if you look at Mark Wahlberg in The Martian, potatoes could grow there, huh? And probably a heck of a lot else. I mean, the atmosphere is primarily CO2, nitrogen, argon, and a few trace elements. I'm game. You? So to quote Musk, it would be quite fun to be on Mars because you would have a gravity that is about 37% of that of Earth. So you'd be able to lift heavy things, bound around, and the day is remarkably close to that of Earth. According to Musk, we just need to change the populations because currently we have several billion here and none on Mars. However, how much would this cost us? What do we have to spend to get to this new paradise, this new Eden? Well, at present, the suggested price tag for that is for one person, $10 billion. But all companies start like that. Remember, all computer companies, the iPhone, the first iPad, first computer, it all starts at that price. But then the 500th or the 5,000th cost only a fraction of the initial. So in order to create a self-sustaining community, the cost will be significantly reduced eventually. Basically, he wants to make it about the price of a house, so around 200,000. Now, in order to reach this goal, it means you're slashing the price by, well, the initial price by 5 million%. So certain things kind of have to occur first. Musk's interplanetary spaceship for getting to Mars will need to launch with fuel tanks that are basically empty in order to refuel in space and to keep the price down. Another requirement, make the tankers and the rockets reusable, something Musk is already working on, and create propellant on Mars rather than constant trips back and forth to Earth for fuel. Well, that's a no-brainer. And that's something that NASA and the ESA, by the way, are designing robots that are capable of doing. As you remember last show, actually, we mentioned it. And last show, you also recall we have a Hawaiian robot, or NASA has a Hawaiian robot, that can build a landing pad in advance of our arrival. So most of the trip is sounding more feasible as time goes on. Some challenges that remain, the Raptor engine, the rocket booster used for the spaceship, but Musk, well, I don't see really any problem with this. He believes in it, so do I, and I trust him. The Raptor engine should be the highest chamber pressure engine of any one built so far. But the full flow combustion engine will need to condense oxygen and methane for fuel and have capacity for 100 passengers. And multiple ships will need to leave Earth during each launch window to Mars. And this will be shuttling 1 million people to the Red Planet in a matter of decades rather than centuries to make the colonization a success. So there are 3 basic requirements according to Elon Musk. According to Elon, pardon me, the rocket will also need to be extremely powerful and far beyond anything we have produced so far. And then second, we are talking about a liftoff thrust of 13,000 tons. So it will be quite tectonic when it takes off, Musk writes. This is really intended to carry huge numbers of people, ultimately millions of tons of cargo to Mars. SpaceX hopes with engineering and research over the coming years, the cost to reach Mars could eventually be reduced even further to 100,000. Musk hopes to complete the first development spaceship in 4 years and then begin testing the ship in suborbital flights. If things go super well, it might be in the 10-year time frame, but I do not want to say that is when it will occur, Musk says. And he also says there is a huge amount of risk. It's going to cost a lot. We will not succeed. There's a good chance we will not succeed, but if we're going to do our best and try to make as much progress as possible. Well, now, Elon Musk is not the only one who suggests that maybe a doomsday event would make us wish we already left Earth. Stephen Hawking, he says humans should ride a beam of light to other planets. Now, this isn't the first time Stephen Hawking has warned us of some threat to humanity. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't listen, especially since he and Musk seem to agree on the part of humanity should focus its efforts on exploring other worlds, maybe starting to get off of this, worlds we might inhabit. And to get there, he says that Earthlings may need to ride on a beam of light. Famed physicist Stephen Hawking do you recall, that was several shows ago, about Yuri Milner, the Russian, and his board? Well, he sits on that board, and he reiterates that humans need to explore space to avoid the dangers of our own finite world. And then he described how humans could one day travel on a beam of light, harnessing the power of Einstein's theory of relativity to reach mind-boggling distant planets. The human imagination has led us to peer even deeper into the universe with scientific tools, Hawking said. And despite this ability to investigate the most distant reaches of the universe without leaving our backyards, humans shouldn't be content with this sedentary approach. Shouldn't we be content to be cosmic sloths enjoying the universe from the comfort of our home, Earth? The answer is no. Hawking said in his address, "Earth is under threat from so many areas that it's difficult for me to be positive." What's more, humans are naturally curious. We're explorers by nature. So why not have us explore, us push out into the unknown? Well, Hawking described the looming threats of a too crowded world facing climate change, the collapse of an animal species, the draining of physical resources. And he's mentioned this, as I said beforehand. But he really feels that we're doomed in the next millennium unless we come up with a plan B or a planet B. When we've reached similar crises in our history, there has usually been somewhere else to colonize. Columbus did it in 1492 when he discovered the New World. But now there's no New World, no utopia around the corner, Hawking said. Explore the unknown. The easiest targets are the places closest to home, the moon and Mars. Hawking said in his Starmus address, "The moon is nearby, but it's small, has no liquid water, and lacks a magnetic field to shield people from radiation. Mars may once have had liquid water, and we know actually that it does have liquid water, kind of salty, but does have liquid water, and no atmosphere. It once did, but no longer. So even more promising is an idea to explore some planets in the vicinity of our nearest stellar neighbor, Proxima Centauri, about 4.5 light years from Earth, where a light year is about 6 trillion miles, or 10 trillion kilometers. A planet circling Proxima Centauri, called Proxima Centauri b, may be somewhat similar to Earth, at least in a few respects, Hawking had said. Now, we'll never really know unless we go to Proxima b. So at current speeds, propulsion, it would take about 3 million years. But there are other manners, there are other ways we can get there. And he's part of that, as what I was saying before, Yuri Milner, that whole group, wants to send like a CubeSat pushed by photons, pushed by protons, pushed by light. So it would go out to the Alpha Centauri system and it would be able to look around and see what's going on. So that would provide a much faster speed than chemical rockets can provide. That of light itself, just about. A powerful beam of light from the rear could drive the spaceship forward. Nuclear fusion could provide 1% of the spaceship's mass energy, which would accelerate it to 1/10 of the speed of light. Going faster than that would require harnessing a matter-antimatter annihilation, or as of yet, it's an undreamed of technology. When matter and antimatter come into contact, they annihilate, releasing gobs of energy, and, well, you see how it's going to go, but that's still kind of, well, it's sort of theoretical. So, tiny space probes, these little CubeSats. Now, to bring these seemingly pipe dreams closer to reality, Hawking, along with physicist a billionaire, that's an important part of it, Yuri Milner, has founded a company called Breakthrough Starship, which aims to make interstellar travel a reality. As an early prototype, the team is creating a teensy little space probe, just a few centimeters wide, attached to a minuscule light sail. The plan is to send 1,000 of these star chips and their sails, uniting to form one powerful light beam to propel the tiny sails with gigawatts of power. So the energy imparted to the tiny space probes could zoom them to speeds about 100 million miles per hour. That's 100 million kilometers per hour, which would mean they would reach Mars in a day, as opposed to 260 days using propulsion. At 1/5 the speed of light, the probes would get to Alpha Centauri in like 20 years. pretty fast, really, and send images back of any possible planets back on another light beam. So, another physicist, Claudius Gauss, has proposed using these tiny spaceship explorers to colonize far-flung planets with a biosphere of unicellular organisms. Human colonization on other planets is no longer science fiction. It can be science fact. The human race has existed as a separate species for about 2 million years. Civilization began 10,000 years ago, and the rate development has been, well, increasing constantly. If humanity continues for another 1,000,000 years, our future lies in boldly going where no one else has gone before, Hawking said. So before we enjoy the launch from SpaceX that they just launched this last weekend, I want you to know that afterwards, stay tuned, keep watching, because we're going to review some of the flying cars, sort of, that's kind of what they're saying they are, and a few other little awesome things before I'm through. But I also wanted to let you know, tune in next show, because the next show I'm going out on the road, and I'm going to start interviewing a rocket club, basically, and they're going to be launching some rockets that day, so it's kind of going to be cool. Well, I kind of like that thing, and I'm sure you do too, or you wouldn't be watching Space Time Continues. So enjoy this launch.
20. Stage 1's pressing for flight. 15. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Lift off the Falcon 9. Prop AVI, RC, and GMC can see the computer 3.170 for post-launch flight operations.
So, Can't decide what kind of flying car to get? Try one of these. It's time, my friends. The future is here. Flying cars and other similar vehicles are here. Better motors, batteries, lightweight materials mean that designers, their dreams can now be built. The flexibility that comes with compact electric motors gives engineers almost total free rein. The designs are extremely varied. One looks like a boat in the air, others out of a Marvel movie. I really wouldn't call some of them flying cars, but the access is there and they do fly. It's the car part that's debatable. Sure, there are details to work out, and how to regulate these things, safely introduce them into the skies over the cities, and well, that could take years. The insurance programs, actually that part's already being done. But just figuring out which car is right for you, which flying vehicle is right for you, well, I thought I'd give you a head start. Because you want to know so you know how much you need to save. You understand. So, flying cars are kind of in disguise, but this is a Aeromobile flying car on display at the Paris Auto Show, and it's hoping to grab the attention of the world's aviators. The Slovakian company plans to produce 500 of these vehicles and sell them at $1.2 million each. This one's a transformer, transitions from driving to flight, and it takes just 3 minutes. Wings unfurl like a waking dragonfly. A rear propeller pops out the back. If this is the vehicle for you, then if you need to have access to a stretch of road, because it's going to need to use as a runway. But if you want to soar above traffic jams, this is the one. Neva Aerospace in the UK. It's a UK-based consortium made up of 5 aviation-focused companies that wanted to build the AirQuad 1. Electric turbofans for propulsion, and at each of its 4 corners make it essentially a bigger version of a handheld quadricopter drone. Neva's range of estimated 25 miles may not sound like much, but it's refreshing, realistic, and plenty to get you across most cities. Kitty Hawk comeback? If you can't tell from the look of the real thing, Kitty Hawk designed its flyer for the recreational end of this market. Its machine, backed by Google's founder Larry Page, looks like something the Green Goblin would have ordered from Sky Mall or some facsimile. And for the moment, it can only be operated over water. Good news for wealthy lake house owners, and actually, that's not such a bad thing. Designers say it takes just a few minutes to learn how to fly, there's no pilot's license required. That's a really cool bonus. Now we get down to some military muscle. Aurora's designers went to town on the fan front, squeezing 24 spinners onto their flying machine. Lightning Strike's distributed electric propulsion system demonstrates a key advantage of small motors. Engineers were able to tuck their motors inside the wings and make them swivel for vertical takeoff and landings, and no runway is required. But then they face backward and they make it rapidly into horizontal flight. The first version of this aircraft has already completed tests for DARPA and the U.S. Air Force, and they're evaluating its usefulness. So maybe don't count on this one for you until they've got it. The helicopter of the future, the Volocopter, is taking on the helicopter. Instead of 2 huge blades on top, it has 18 smaller ones, spaced out on a ring that approximates the reach of the traditional rotors. German company eVolo says that this funky thing will have 2 seats and be super easy to fly. Twin batteries offer 30 minutes flying time, and it can be yours for a relatively reasonable $340,000. So that's probably the cheapest one thus far. Now, have you ever considered flying maybe something weird shaped? Lilium's aviation jet uses the same distributed electric propulsion concept as the Aurora's lightning strike. It's a battery-powered, oversized football with a glass dome over the occupant and an array of swiveling fans over the wings at the back. A full-size prototype took the air in Munich, Germany in April, proving the basic ideas work. Lithium's claims of 190 miles of range at 190 miles per hour might take some yet-to-be-invented battery tech, though. And our seventh one, it's from Airbus. It's their drone plane car pod. Now, maybe you know them for building the world's largest passenger plane, the A380, along with around half of the other commercial jets that airlines drive or operate. That's to say, it knows how to create flying machines, right? So the modular pop-up car, flying car really, stretches through. The concept centers around a carbon fiber passenger pod, which can either clip on wheels under its giant quadcopter to reach its destination. You'd be surprised to hear there's no time frame on this one. Airbus, they're not content with all these jets they do and then the last car one that they did, but now another flying car. And it's also building Vahana, an autonomous flying machine. Now this one has 8 rotors. It's tiltable wings. It looks pretty cool. And it's got a lift-up cockpit revealing seating for 1. So make sure you don't take anybody for the ride. The company's already working on a full-size prototype, and it's planning a demonstration flight by the end of the year. Now, there's another suggestion. They're suggesting you don't bike, but you flike. Fly, bike, got it? Okay. For motorcyclists, Flike's machine could offer the best flying substitute. The Hungarian company is looking to build a saddle surrounded by like a triad of double rotors. The engineers behind it say that they were motivated by reading an article saying a drone would never be powerful to lift a human, and setting out to prove it wrong. They've managed a short flight in a prototype and promise more to come. Now, that same one, I've actually seen something very similar, if not that itself, in recent movies. So maybe that's a real good one. Maybe we should consider that. I mean, yeah, these things are basically dreams for us and for them, except for a few of us who we can take care of that, right? But in the meantime, remember what I said about the first one you build is more expensive, and then the second one and the third one, it goes down in price each time? Same thing's going to happen. So if $1.2 million or $360,000 or $340,000, what have you, is a little too much for you, wait, the price will go down, and we'll all be able to fly to work. And then there'll be no traffic down on the ground, and that one person driving to work will get there faster. I'm Mary Louise Davey, and this has been Space Time Continues. See you next time.
Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,